I've had a Twitter campaign that I've mentioned a couple of times where I go around and I tell people about this military bill and how horrible it is. And I do that because I know it isn't reported by the media the way that it should, and I know that there are statistics that people aren't aware of in the numbers that they should, such as the 63% of Americans that can't afford the $1,000 emergency, the 76% that live paycheck to paycheck. These are things that didn't start under Trump, but they've stayed under him. And I've had a lot of his supporters who will try to defend his record on this, but you have a number of them who will, if you talk to them, admit, yes, this is bad, this is not a good circumstance. Or they'll deny it. They want to live in the fantasy of this not being a thing. And so, when I was on Twitter today, there was a person who responded to me posting this story. And I said that, um, their response to me was that, uh, in reference to these statistics about the lack of people that can afford the $1,000 emergency, um, it's called needing to get a college degree and a good paying job, uh, and how Democrats or whatever expect handouts. And so I mentioned that, you have 43% of the homeless that are working. How is that? How are they expecting a handout if they get up every day and go at night to lay in a box? Um, and this person's response stopped me in my tracks. They said, and I quote, 100% of the homeless are due to their own bad choices. They reflect on the fact that on the assertion that they came from what they call a bad neighborhood. I don't know what that means. Um, Either the people were poor, it was crime ridden, and says that they used the military to get a degree and then kind of mockingly say that they had ambition. So I'm supposed to believe that you know, uh, that every homeless person never had ambition. They never had a circumstance that was outside of their direct control. Um, and so when I was sitting here and I was reading, just kind of staring at that response, I thought about how it made me believe the person had no humanity because they pride themselves in the fact that they again went to the military, but you can't tell me to respect your service if you can't respect humanity. Whether you think it's the handout thing or not, most people will say having a majority of people in a circumstance that is barely sustainable, like living paycheck to paycheck or being homeless, is a bad thing. So this person, quickly I denounce them as scum in my mind, and most of these comments I deal with because the people don't say anything that's so absurd. But I typed in their name. I did some research. I remember this is a person who, kind of mocks people who can't afford $1,000 emergency, which is most Americans, by the way. Just reasserting that fact. And I found a GoFundMe that they put up over a year ago, and it was meant to raise a couple of thousands of dollars, and it raised hundreds. Now, I'm not going to say what it was for, but we know that when someone puts up something on GoFundMe, they are looking for assistance. I don't call that a handout. I think that if someone is in a dire circumstance and there are people who are generous enough to be sympathetic to that, why not? Um, but I'm sitting here and I'm staring at this because, again, the goal was several thousands of dollars, not too far removed from what most people can afford. And this to know that this person set this up, that they wrote this over a year ago. So it's not like, oh man, 30 years ago they did this. This is over a year ago. And today are sitting here and trying to defend a system in which a majority of people are living in a piss poor circumstance. Um, is absolutely disgusting. And again, the generalization of every single person who's homeless is there because of themselves. So, like I said, I have a low opinion of this individual. I will never interact with them again. Um, but it's the fact that people read that stuff and they feel they can write that stuff that should be what's disturbing here. That when you talk about the fact that there are millions of people who are homeless, who are in these conditions, and that while there are some who did not try, there are loads who did and had things out of their control happen. They just don't care. And it goes back to this lack of humanity that I've been talking about, where people can't empathize with something that is not them. You know, when I was having a lot of people who would sit here and say all these nasty things to me about the relationship stuff, for example, they're saying that because they can not understand where someone would be disillusioned over having the same thing happen over and over again with a particular group of people, and then go and vocalize it and not find themselves at fault for it. And it all fits that narrative, and it's why we have all these people who are living impoverished, including apparently this person, and yet they still they're so self-defeating that they can write something like that. So as I said before, I don't care that this person served in the military. I don't care if they were in there for a million years. If you can look at an entire demographic of people and say everyone is there because of their own poor choices, when there's things out of their control, such as who gets in the White House and other factors, you have no humanity. You are. I call these politicians empty suits, but you are an empty person. You have no soul. You are a Manchurian individual who is a wolf in sheep's clothing. You know, you have the face of a human and the mind of a heartless demon. If you can lump that entire group together, like I said, he could have easily said, this percentage is there because of whatever. And it could have been entirely wrong, but it could have still shown that it's not all this blanket everybody is this, that generalizing nonsense that, we're talking about people's living conditions. We're in the richest country in the entire world, and you have most of the people living impoverished, no matter what party they vote for. Pathetic. So if Trump gets reelected, and I'm still in the camp that says he will, because the Democrats are going to do their rigged primary nonsense again and haven't learned their lesson as a whole, you are going to have people like this who will come out and say, oh man, what a great job he's doing, what a great job he's doing. And I have a video planned for Saturday where I talk about the upcoming crash that I think will happen while he's in office. And the one good thing that will come out of that is that Trump will be reduced to the same reputation that George W. is. That, these people can't sit here and defend his nonsense because of just this enormous burst of the bubble. And when that happens, I will feel sympathetic for those who voted for him and wanted an actual change from, the same lack of action on the banks that we had with Obama. I will not be sympathetic to those such as this person who not only refused to acknowledge that their vote for him was not beneficial to the average American, but blame the average person for their circumstance. People like this should be booed everywhere they go. And they're allowed to continue in society and make comments showing their lack of humanity, and it is truly sickening. So I thank those who've checked us out. I only hope that we can one day live in a world where a majority of people care for their fellow man. And, just to make this final point, this is a person who, if you went up and spoke with, being a veteran, which, by the way, 27% of veterans are of the homeless are veterans, but whatever, no lack of humanity. So this is a person who most people, just by hearing that they served, would say was a patriot. Well, people who are concerned about the fact that the majority of Americans are either living paycheck to paycheck or are homeless are not patriots. Remember, this is not a circumstance that afflicts me, because it's one that I've tried to escape with all of my might. But I can completely, ascertain the idea that other people have attempted that as well and not been successful, either because of maybe something that was done to them or just being paid stagnant wages that have been stagnant for the last 40 years. But again, this type of humanity is so far removed from these people that they don't have the common sense to recognize their own stupidity. Like I said, I try to keep this thing calm and not. When I read this, I wanted to do something yelling, but it doesn't people look at for ways to deflect from a message. There are a lot of people who swear, who've had someone say, "Oh, I don't want to watch that, they're cursing," or they've had people who are sitting there and mocking how they look. These are all things that some I can control completely, some I can't. But I've tried to approach this in a matter of fact manner and make my case. And if you still can't figure that out after seeing this, I don't know what else to do. But it's been the case when I do this campaign. It's just me talking to loads and loads of people, and getting the same moronic responses about how great things are. Look for a reason outside of Trump. That's fine, but don't lie to yourself. So thank you.